Today, on the feast day of the conversion of St. Paul, we see from our first reading from the letter of the Acts of the Apostles, Paul a couple different times addresses those that are before him. He shares his conversion story or his testimony. I mentioned over the weekend after we heard Meredith, talking about the upcoming women's retreat and how powerful and how it's needed to hear testimony of others. It's similar to like hearing the lives of the saints, and we certainly see it with Paul. And it's striking in the Acts of the Apostles that like he was so strongly going this way, and now he's going this way. The Magnificat has a quote from Saint Catherine of Siena. If you already read it this morning, but she sums it up this way: "That dear preacher Paul, he was a wolf, but he became a lamb, a gracious vessel of love." The dear preacher Paul, he was a wolf and became a lamb. How? Because God broke into his life. He had an encounter with a person. And Paul, I think it's important to know that like Paul's the guy. He's the guy. You even see it in the beginning. Like we know about Paul, he was just so passionate. He mentions in the beginning here as he's addressing, he says, "I was well educated. Like I sat at the feet of the best. Like I had good understanding. I was zealous for God. I loved him." He's the best of the best. Who does God typically not use in the scriptures? He typically doesn't use the best of the best, does he? Who does he usually go use? Over and over and over again, it's the lowly. And when we hear the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit. He doesn't typically use the best of the best. So what does he do with Paul? What's in his story? There's a lot of things in this little in the story here in his conversion. Just to highlight the fact. What was he as he was heading over to Damascus? He was knocked off his figurative high horse, wasn't he? A bright light. He was knocked off his high horse, and what else? He was blinded by a light so that he could hear the voice of God. And even it says, "Since I could see nothing because of the brightness of that light, I was led by the hand by my companions." Kind of that infant figure, right? Paul there is blinded and he's being led by the hand. He's asking God, like, what's the next step? And God just simply says, he says, "What shall I do, sir?" Paul says, "The Lord answered me, get up and go into Damascus, and there you'll be told about everything appointed for you to do." I'm going to tell you enough for now. You're used to being the best of the best. You're used to being up on your high horse. And so maybe for us today, two things. One is what this leads us to. One is it should lead us to a great amount of hope. Again, the Magnificat this morning is struck by the little summary. It says, "The conversion of St. Paul inspires us to overcome all fatalism and discouragement about ourselves." What fatalism might be in my heart here this morning? Discouragement that might be in my heart this morning about myself, about my way, about like this is maybe always the way it's been, or maybe it's a family member. It's just the way it is. Any fatalism that's in my heart, the conversion of Paul helps us overcome that. For the love of Jesus penetrates the hardest of hearts. What did he do to Paul? Paul had the hardest of hearts. Why? Because he was the best of the best. He was on the highest of horses. So let it fill us with hope. And maybe the second question is, or movement for us and for me this morning is, Lord, help me see the high horse that I'm on. Chances are I'm on a couple of them. Help me see the high horse that I'm on. And I have a tendency to be on it. Lord, maybe I need you to blind me here. so that I take someone by the hand, namely him by the hand. So on this feast day of St. Paul, we ask for his prayers for our own conversion, and maybe especially for any family members that we have, children, grandchildren, siblings, spouses, that we hope to have this conversion, and we can ask Paul for his prayers.